Welcome to Cup of Joe and Filthy Pleb Esports. I'm Joe, and I'm here to talk about regular sports. That's right. Today we're going to talk about normal, regular, everyday, vanilla, sports: baseball, basketball, soccer, hockey, football, and their relationship to esports. Because one of the things that I've been thinking about with the or that I was thinking about, I should say, when I was at the beginning of this coronavirus scare is, oh my gosh, this is a great opportunity for esports. People aren't watching their traditional sports as much, so now esports can pick up more viewership, more people can watch it because they don't have anything else to watch. There's nothing there that they can really watch to satisfy their competitive interests. I mean, a soccer channel I watched said they were gonna go rewatch the 1999 Champions League final, which I mean is all well and good, but it's nothing new. And then, of course, all the esports leagues had to pretty much cancel all their games, so that was a nice dream while it lasted, but safety first. So one of the first areas that I wanted to talk about was sort of, there's like three tiers of sports, I would say. You have these very player-dominated sports. So think the NHL, the NBA, soccer. Then you have the more tactical team sports, so something like the NFL. And then you have Major League Baseball, which is like a very odd sport because the majority of the action, you could say, takes place between the pitcher and the catcher and the batter, and his coaches trying to guess what the signs are, steal the signs, things like that. And so it's one of those things where I think that it's a very odd system due to the fact that it really doesn't necessarily fit any of these clean lines or breakdowns, I would say. But I think that it has, what's the word, a parity with esports. So we're going to start from the top and talk about these single player dominated sports. So think about hockey, soccer, basketball. These are sports where you have players like LeBron James or Ronaldo, or either Ronaldo. These are players, or hockey, you have someone like Sidney Crosby. I don't follow hockey very much. He's the only player I know. But these are sports where if you have one incredibly dominant player, they can single-handedly change the fate of a game. You look at, I think it was Wilt Chamberlain scoring like 100 points or something in a single basketball game. Crazy things like that, where this one player was able to take control and then shape the outcome of the game dramatically just due to their own personal skill and prowess. And so when it comes to esports, I think that there are several leagues that really match up to that. And these two, the two that I'm going to talk about are Rainbow Six Siege and Counter-Strike Global Offensive. Both of these are competitive first-person shooters. Two teams of 5 face each other. One team defends, one team attacks, and you either win by either defusing or destroying an objective with a bomb, or you kill the other team. And so oftentimes these esports can end up in a situation where you have one player, against 3 or 4 other players, or they're at a dramatic man disadvantage. And that's when these single dominant players can really, really show their skill. At the Katowice Major a few weeks back, I watched Simple, one of the players for Navi, just utterly dominate. I mean, his team would be down a few kills, and he would just start hitting shot after shot after shot after shot, and he would single-handedly win those rounds for his team. And that also, the idea of the clutch is a very, very important concept, and I guess what the draw of these sports, that even though one team has only one player left, that one player can completely change the fate of that round or that game for their team and come out with the win. And because of that, it really makes those games highly dramatic. If you're in baseball, in soccer, if you score that like 93rd minute penalty shot, or that 93rd minute cross into the box from a corner, things like that. The emotion seems to be very, very similar to in a game like Rainbow Six Siege or CS:GO, where you have that that clutch moment where you the one player turns around and gets a triple kill, and suddenly his team is on top, and they have that powerful emotional urge and just that upwell of emotion. I feel like it's very similar. Next I think in parody of football, you have so American football, that is. I think MOBA genres like League of Legends or Dota really fit into this as a nice parallel to the NFL. The reason for this is that the NFL you have is very much it's very tactically driven. You have to you analyze where the other team plays, what their tendencies are, how they set up their team, and then you figure out a way to set up your team that beats their team. And a lot of it, and it's not just that you have to tactically do that. Then your players on the field have to enact that plan, and as long as it goes according to that plan, you should win. So it's very much an idea about the focus is very much heavy team coordination, heavy discipline to follow the plan so that you can outsmart and overcome your opponent's plan. And that's very similar to how games like League of Legends and Dota are structured competitively. These are games where you have 5 players on each team. The goal is to beat the other team back all the way across to their side of the map and kill their home base. And so that's what the pacing of that game is fundamentally sort of I draft a team of a certain set of people, a certain set of characters, and you draft a team of a certain set of characters, and then you play like chicken almost around the map, where one team goes to one spot and you say, oh well, can I give that up or should I fight there? And so it's very much a game, but it still has that very sort of analytical, tactical analysis of, okay, what are their tendencies? Then how do I beat their tendencies? Through either playing in the game or strategizing prior to the game and setting yourself up for success. I think both of these games, I would feel like, tend to have a much more structured, grindy feel to them, where you watch in a League of Legends game, you can, if one team in League of Legends, if one team gets ahead, they tend to, this idea of snowballing occurs, where because every time you get a kill, your team gets gold, then you use to get better items and better equipment. You proceed to just batter your opponent into submission. And while the NFL is not, every time you get a sack or every time you get a pick, it doesn't necessarily, give you money in the same literal sense that benefits your team in the game. That cumulative physical effect and the emotional effect of how the two teams clashing together in football feels very analogous to League of Legends, as well as the pacing seems to be a little similar, very similar, because you're going to have periods of very, very intense clashing, followed by, in the NFL, a lull for the teams to figure out what they're going to do next, or in League of Legends, where the teams go back and buy. So there's a very nice analogy between those two games there. And then finally, baseball. It's a very odd sport. I think that it's honestly best listened to on the radio, because you don't really need to watch it, honestly. But my own personal views of baseball aside, its fans really think of it as a cerebral game, and they really go down to the analytics and the way in which the pitchers and the catchers played mind games with the batters to try to figure out, okay, so if I throw a fastball here followed by a curveball on the other side of the plate, then that's gonna break his focus and he won't be able to hit the ball. Things like that is really what baseball fans talk about when they think of the game as so dynamic. Or dynamic's a terrible word to describe baseball. As engaging, we'll say. And so I'm going to compare it to an esport that's, I would argue, is neither dynamic nor engaging, but is still fun to watch, and that's Hearthstone. Hearthstone is a competitive card game where 2 players, in the competitive format, generally players bring 2 to 3 decks. Last time I watched it, which was years ago, they bring several decks of cards for different champions, and they have to beat their opponent with all of their decks first. So it's very much, you have to figure out which one of your decks is best to play against their first deck, and then how can you win the correct number of rounds to successfully end the series in your favor. But I think the main way in which I see baseball and Hearthstone as parallel is the fact that it's very much a, if I do this, what does he do? And then how does he respond? It's almost, I mean, one could argue chess is a better parallel for Hearthstone, but that's neither here nor there. But I think baseball's fans oftentimes see their game as physical chess, where, if we do this, then how will the batter react? Or if we shift the infield this way, will he bunt to move the batter over? Things like that. And that's how Hearthstone works, where you say, all right, so if I, coin out my, oh gosh, my loot hoarder on turn one, and he has a hero power, what will that do? And then will it help me put out my more valuable card later on down the line? Things like that is really what I feel like is endemic to Hearthstone as a game, and why it ends up being somewhat parallel to professional baseball. Those are my thoughts on this, and while honestly most of these esports will not be able to stand in for our favorite real sports, I hope that you enjoyed these musings, and hope to see you next time. Thank you for watching Cup of Joe and Filthy Pleb Esports. I am Joe, and I'll see you next time.